So you play this so well. I only wish I could play with your facility. So congratulations on that. And you're really accurate, and the rhythm is quite good. So if I was listening to this on an audition, I would immediately think that you really possess the facility. And this is maybe, well, one of the hardest, say, 3 or 4 excerpts in the literature. So at least in the standard repertoire. So I have very little to talk about. I thought I would just throw out a couple of ideas. The first is that it may, you may come up with a conductor, or play with a conductor that wants a little bit less allegro and a little more giusto. So I feel like you feel the pulse in almost, sometimes it's almost like 1 to a bar. Which is almost more of a vivace or presto. Whereas if you were a wind instrument, you would be tonguing every note, right? Can you imagine that you were, can you try it in that sense so that you also get the pa, 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 ya, ta, 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 ti, ta, 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 ti, ta, 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 ti, ta, 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 ti, ta, 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 ta. So it's a little bit more tartar dancing kind of thing. Fantastic, yeah. And then another thing you could consider, and again, this will be up to the orchestra and what your colleagues are doing, is actually use a very little pedal. Right. So you really get the sort of more of a detached sound. Can you try that? It's so good, yeah. And the last thing I would say is, when you think about it, again, if you're, it's just an experiment in pulse. It still feels like da 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 ya da 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 dee, but could it feel like da 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 dee, like a little bit more giusto? So what does giusto mean to you?
Not really sure.
Well, it should feel very sure of what the rhythm is, I guess. So less swing and more just like rhythmic accuracy, so that if I was to look at the sonogram of the piece, I would see that every, there's an equal interval between each note, that it really feels ta 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 ta, whereas I feel almost a bit of a swing, which is actually much harder to do. But can you try it thinking pa pa pum pa 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 ya ta 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 ti ta 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 ti. Good. Now this part, that was great, by the way. This part you could almost, again, these are just things that you play it super well, and I would be totally impressed here at an audition. But can you find the inner melody that is actually a beep ba 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 beep ba 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 beep ba 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 beep ba 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 ba, that you integrate, so it's not just an alternating pattern. Try it slowly. Dee da. Yes. Dee da dee da dee da dee da dee da dee da dee da. Yeah, that's exactly it. And I would say no pedal. So I need a little bit more of the offbeat. Dee da dee da dee da. Yeah. Dee da 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 dee da da dee da da dee da da dee da. Yes. Do 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 do. Do 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 do. Good, 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 good. Yeah, so that's just something. It also keeps it much more just in terms of rhythm. Now this part, do 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 do. You could pedal that, and just as an option, can you try it dry and clear? So I get burial. Good. Now again, this is if the orchestra is taking a more sort of disciplined approach to it. Can you feel ba 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 ta 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 ti durium pa 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 pam brigam ta ta ti. it just gets a little bit ahead sometimes. Do you hear it?
Yeah.
Ta ti ta ti durium. And think about that the last of the ta 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 ti is a spring. Pa 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 pim durium. Pa 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 pim durium. That it doesn't go pa 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 durium. It's ti, one instrument ta 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 ti durium. Pa 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 pum durium. Sure. Good. Amazing. And that section there, that last section you play so easily, and it's so hard. I'm so impressed. One possibility for the gliss. So one thing that I always thought about with the gliss is that it's really hard because you're coming up, and then you have to get to this chord that's like a 4-note chord up there. One thing you could try is, well, there's two things you could try. Sometimes it's a little bit weird, I know, but you could wear like a half glove, and then you can slide like, which is very easy, and then your hands are ready on the chord. The other way, which is similar, is to do, I don't know if you've ever, so yeah, you kind of use your nails this way. No, so you don't even, you're kind of like, so yeah, you're actually in line with the keys there. Do you see? It takes a little practice. So you make a sort of fist like that, not a fist, but and then you put the like almost directly with the nail, which is great. Especially, it's best if you're doing like quiet glisses. It's actually the easiest way to do that. But here you can go, and then you're like, you don't actually miss notes. So can you see if that works? It takes a lot of practice, so I'm not saying it would. See what I mean? So then you actually get up to the top note. Right. So I can actually hear that you go, there's not a gap. It's something to think about. The other way, again, is if you wear, and I've actually done this before, is wear a half glove. And then you can like slide and then be right there. But the idea is like, how soon can I get to that note?
Right, yeah.
Now, this 41, really well played again. But I don't feel that, can you imagine that you're like a soloistic wind at 41? That I really get a sense that there's an orchestration of instruments there. Can it be even more soloistic? But rhythmic, yeah. Try it again. Beautiful. Yeah, exactly. So those are just things that you can think about when you're playing, so that you really are matching the orchestra.
Right.
If you were playing it as a solo piece, you'd probably play it differently. That's great. Thanks.
Thank you.